Thank you so much for watching. The great Jim Molan, standing by, of course, Senator from New South Wales. Thank goodness he's part of the government and can tell us what's really happening when it comes to matters of defence and global defence right now. Nice to see you again, Senator. Let's talk here again about Russia, the Ukraine and what's happening here and the hand of China in all of this, particularly, its complicated relationship back through to NATO. But we hear today that Australia is going to be sending, among other things, 70,000 tonnes of coal to make sure that there is power in Ukraine. Part of us helping.
It's quite amazing, Paul, isn't it, that people are realising that energy security is national security. So I certainly congratulate our government on doing that. This is not just about sending missiles, anti-armour missiles, anti-aircraft missiles to a country which is doing an extraordinary job. It's not about sending humanitarian aid to help those extraordinary refugees pouring into the neighbouring countries and some going to Russia and disappearing, but it's about realising that national power requires energy. So I think it's fantastic.
So let's talk about the China question in all of this. Now, we know that China and Russia, and remember we talked about it so long ago, got closer, wanting to defend each other's territory. There was a pivot towards Russia maybe reaching out to China and trying to help out financially. There's some grey area about whether they are or aren't. But what are you seeing in what China is doing and not doing right now?
Well, I think there's a couple of things that is impacting on China in relation to NATO and other countries. The first is that, as you mentioned, China has expressed deep support for Russia. Now let's see what it means. And certainly economic support, military support, or support just by saying things that are favourable towards Russia. Whether that happens or not is yet to be seen. The meeting between President Xi and President Biden, certainly warnings were given to China, but I wonder how President Xi supposedly receives these warnings. President Biden is not the most inspiring person, but I still believe that the one country that China does pay particular attention to is the US. I think it's ironic because China would also be very, very happy if Russia was bled out in the Ukraine, because then you see China as the lead authoritarian country in the entire world. And that before this Ukraine war, I guess there were two leading authoritarian countries. And in the future, if Russia is weakened, if NATO is weakened, if the world is weakened and China is strong, that's in their interest. I think China would be interested if NATO itself was weakened. But there is no sign of that. The disruption that I guess China would have hoped may have occurred in NATO is not being seen. NATO is backing up on the border. Eastern Europe is full of troops. There are exercises all over the place. The Americans have got just over 100,000 troops now in Europe. Germany has changed, as we all know. So in today's military, though, NATO runs the risk of expending its missile inventory. And missiles nowadays are the basis of military warfare, and you can expend too many of them. And I guess the last point I'd make is that the world has extraordinary economic power, and China, in order to keep its people happy, has got to keep them relatively prosperous. And I think that she would be watching the impact of sanctions on Russia, which are as extraordinary as the impact of the Ukrainian fighters on Russia.
Yeah, great point. Thank you, Jim. Nice to talk to you. Let's do it again in a few days' time. Jim Molan is, of course, Senator from New South Wales and the best brain when it comes to these things and so much more.